the bookshop, it's the bookshop, it's the bookshop of Beverly Farms.
Howdy, everybody. It is Sam Feifel, your host of your favorite little podcast about reading, writing, bookstores, Christmas time, chaos, John Updike's ghost. And I am joined, as always, by the lovely, the talented, and burgeoning bookstagrammer, Hannah Harlow. How are you doing, Hannah?
Oh, I am bookstagramming just all the time now.
Should you need recommendations for the next book that you are going to read and have it only take 1 minute, you should follow Bookshop of Beverly Farms on Instagram, which is something owned by Meta, which is owned by Mark Zuckerberg, which is beyond my ken. I don't know anything else about that, but Hannah is an expert Instagrammer now, we found.
Yes, I've started doing 1 minute book reviews. I've done 2. I'm going to do 1 a week. But the first 2 were very successful.
Very successful, I would
yes.
say.
And now I meet new people in town and they say, oh, wait, are you with the bookstore? I've seen you online. So it's really spreading. Yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable.
I'm getting recognized.
I often have people who hear my voice and they say, do you have a podcast called John Updike's Ghost? Your voice is really... No, actually, that's never happened.
That's never happened to us.
It's never happened, but, it's fine.
There's still time. It hasn't happened yet.
It is a manic day in the bookshop. You can hear the hustle and bustle behind Hannah. We are in the final stretch of the holiday season. As people may or may not know, bookstores are quiet, sleepy, nice places during most of the year. But in the month of December, they become raucous, very loud, conversational places where people come in and demand that their needs be met. Meet my needs. And Hannah is busy meeting those needs. The phone rings. It's crazy. It's really quite something. So we are going to do our best here to, this is kind of an interstitial podcast, I would say. Our next podcast is going to be our books of the year and what we got for Christmas, that kind of thing. In the interim, I will say, December is also a stressful time for freelance writers like myself. We have lots of deadlines because no one assigns us to do anything in January when everybody looks at their budget and doesn't pay writers. So, Hannah, I can say that I have done nothing but read The Magicians for the last 2 weeks now. I read all 3 of the Magicians trilogy. In fact, not just The Magicians, but The Magician King and The Magician's Land by Lev Grossman. And I think this is the 3rd time that I have read these books. And I don't know why I'm reading them. I know the story. I've seen the show. I think they are just a comfortable thing for me to do. I like 90s kids set in contemporary United States doing magic and swearing and having sex a lot. It is entertaining to me. So
I really like those books.
Of the reading I've done.
That's great.
I think you introduced them to me.
I think I did. And I feel like I thought you read the first one and you were like annoyed by it and hated it because it was a ripoff of C.S. Lewis.
Well, so I've come around on that point.
You've changed your mind.
Yes,
okay.
I've come around. Well, so I think when I read it originally, I was a little annoyed because I don't know if I didn't get what he was doing or it wasn't sort of landing with me because it's obviously meta, right? It is
obviously meta, but the first time, I guess it wasn't so obvious to you.
I know, but so the first time I thought it was like mockery, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I thought it was sort of mocking those people who like believed in magical lands and like fell in love with fantasy and daydreamed about being able to do magic and all that sort of stuff. I thought it was like, just like 100% ironic.
Oh.
And I really don't think that's the case now. I think it is. And it's also because, the Magicians, kind of gives way to these next 2 books, The Magician's King and The Magician's Land, which kind of follow these stories a little bit longer into these people's lives. But I think it's really like, so it comes out that the more miserable you are and the more trauma you have experienced, the better you are at being able to do magic, right? So,
oh, right. I haven't read these in a while.
right. So that, that was kind of hinted at in the first one, but then it gets really explored in the next two. And I also probably had not had quite as much therapy originally, right? And so
probably not.
What I recognize is Lev is basically postulating that the more miserable your upbringing was, the more likely you would have been to gravitate to these tales that sort of take you out of this universe and promise you that this crap existence that you're living is not all there is, and there is this way to escape. And so, he was playing on that in a way that I wasn't really getting originally, and now I'm super into. It's another ironic instance of me really vibing with these, things that are supposed to vibe with people who have had traumatic upbringings, and yet I had zero trauma whatsoever in my upbringing.
We had a really lovely upbringing.
Right. As we have said before, I sort of brought trauma on myself for reasons that are not clear. I think, the way that people speculate that, asthma and anti-inflammatory or autoimmune diseases are the results of being like too clean, right? Like there's people who say, if you go through your life like completely sanitary, you're never introduced to any illnesses, your body starts sort of like eating itself because it's designed to fight off disease, but it doesn't see any disease, so it sort of fights itself, right? That's like a theory. I'm not necessarily advocating that theory. I think the same is true for my upbringing, where I had zero actual problems. And so my brain decided to create problems and tell myself that I must be miserable for reasons that are very unclear.
When you grow up as a reader and maybe wanting to be a novelist, you're like, well, I have to have something to draw on.
Right. Yes.
And like, our parents were giving us nothing.
Right, exactly. Right. And so I had to manufacture some trauma for myself by making
for all of us. Thank you so much.
Decisions.
Your teenage years were a real treat.
Right. But so I now see, and now just I don't know, I highly recommend The Magician. I think there are people who hate it, right? Online there's a lot of controversy because it's very like 90s kid type stuff, like in a way.
Have you watched the TV show? Sorry, I just interrupted that.
Yes, the TV show I think is
it's great.
Better. It's awesome. So good.
It's so good.
I just finished the 5th season and I was like depressed for a couple of days because I didn't have any more to watch.
I only watched the first couple, but I really enjoyed it.
No, I think it gets better. Maybe the last season, like they're just kind of messing around. Because they start introducing like all of this music. Did you notice that?
No.
I think they must all come from like a musical theater background because they all sing their own parts. And so in the last few seasons, there are numerous storylines where like, oh no, we've been possessed and we have to sing. And then they go through and they sing like these big, long, like 3-minute numbers with dances and stuff. And
that's amazing because it also reminds me of like one of my favorite Buffy the Vampire Slayer episodes.
Right. Yes.
So good.
But I think actually they start as a Buffy, not like they reference Buffy and the Magicians. And, and another favorite part of the Magicians is that there are constant references to all the stuff that kids who love fantasy like. So it's not just, the C.S. Lewis stuff, but there's constant Harry Potter references and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and just like any like magical stuff that we would have consumed finds its way into this, even though they're really supposed to be like 10 or 15 years younger than we are.
Right. Sure. But I believe Lev Grossman is about our age. So
no, he totally is. That's what I'm saying. So it transposes like, kids these days do not, drink and fuck and do all those things nearly as much as the characters in these books, but they did back in the 90s.
In the 90s, they did, yes.
So it takes all of this sort of like slacker culture and puts it into contemporary culture and gives them magic. And
so
I find
people our
that,
age would enjoy reading it very much. I would
yeah, I
think.
think it's mostly for people in their late 30s, 40s, that type of thing. Like, I think, what happens is the kids on, these 20-year-olds online are like, wow, these people are being very problematic to each other, and they insult each other a lot. And, they don't seem to be finding space for one another's feelings.
Right.
It's like, no, they are not doing those things. They're very mean. They make lots of bad decisions. But that was totally cool back in the day. That was the thing, So that's mostly what I've been reading. You've probably been reading really substantive, important novels.
Well, I actually have to say that in the past few weeks, I've hit a bunch of winners. Like I've read some books that are just so good. And for how busy I am in the store, I've been surprised at how much I've been reading. But I actually find I get to the end of the day and I'm like my feet hurt, and I don't want to watch TV. Like, I just want to curl up with a book.
Yeah.
And I've read a bunch of books that are coming out next year that are frankly spectacular.
We're not
So
going
I'm
to
really
talk
excited about them, but we're not really going to talk about them. I did read a book that just came out called We Must Not Think of Ourselves by Lauren Grodstein.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I did a 1-minute book review about this. Is my first one.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yes.
But I don't really remember anything about it, so you should tell me again.
Yeah, it's historical fiction. It's set in the 1941 in Warsaw. And
are you telling me that this is a World War II novel?
It is a World War II novel.
What a rare thing. I feel as though there's a deficit in World War II novels, so I'm glad there's another one that's been released.
Well, if you've been wanting more World War II novels in your life because you just can't seem to find any, this one's for you.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's about, the Jews of Warsaw who were rounded up into the ghetto, and the narrator is an English teacher, and his wife died pretty recently. So he's kind of on his own, but living in this apartment with 2 other families because that's how it worked, whatever. Mm-hmm. And there's a burgeoning love story between him and one of the other people in the apartment, which is really lovely. Mm. And he's teaching English to, a ragtag crew of students who appear or don't appear every week. But he gets roped into this project to tell the stories, to collect the stories and write down the stories of the Jewish people who are there. And so he's so the stories interspersed with the histories he takes down of various characters, his students, his apartment mates, and whatnot.
Just a bunch of historical sketches for how I came to Warsaw or whatever.
Yeah, just their little family histories or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's all really lovely, but as you get towards the end, there's kind of a escape plot in the works. And I will say at the end, I was really seriously crying, in a way that I love, where I was just so heartbroken and it was so awful, but so good.
'Tis the season.
Yes.
That's right. I believe you called yourself ugly crying.
I was ugly crying.
Yes, that seemed to resonate with the Bookstagram audience.
Yeah. So, and I have 2 sons, so I'll say there were 2 sons involved in the ugly crying part of the story. So, it might not affect everyone as much as it affected me, but it did affect me. And I will say that Lauren Grodstein was one of my first English teachers and has been a friend of mine for the past 20 years. So
one of your first English teachers?
Sorry, writing teachers. Did I say English teachers?
I was going to say, what, in 3rd grade at the end of it?
I think because the main character is an English teacher, I said that.
I didn't know. Maybe. I don't know. Oh, so she was she's at Bennington? Middlebury?
No, when I first moved to New York, I signed up for a writing class at Cooper Union, just randomly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she taught it, and there was another student in the class, and we kind of became friends, and she was like, our teacher seems really cool. I think we should become friends with her. And I was like, okay, let's try. And so we went up and started talking to her during a break. And then she invited us she kind of poached us for she created a private class. She just pulled all her favorite students from various classes she was taking. and started hosting a writing class in her apartment. And she lives in not too far from me in Brooklyn. So I was going to her apartment every week. It was
pretty
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
Yes, I forced myself on her and she didn't mind.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
What's the name of it again?
We Must Not Think of Ourselves.
We Must Not Think of Ourselves. All right. That sounds terrific. Couple other things I wanted to mention. I have a thing when I go to other bookstores where, again, I just didn't feel like even the get a book out of the library project seemed a little bit much for me, which is why I got The Magician's Land out of the library. I cheated, but it is a library. I got another library book, but
That's
cheated.
Good.
So when I'm not really feeling like reading anything substantive, I tend to go to bookstores and buy books of poetry, mostly because I know very few people buy books of poetry, and I want them to think, oh, hey, somebody's buying poetry, so I'm going to order some more poetry. So a couple of books that I read recently that I really enjoyed. One is The House of Sparrows by Betsy Sholl. And I know Betsy a little bit. She was the poet laureate of Maine for a short time. She's also the mother of Hannah Tarkinson, who is an artist. She has Ponemo Studios. I think I've bought something from her for you or something. And I definitely bought something from her for your son for Christmas this year.
Excellent.
So he's going to look cool. And she's also a great musician that I've collaborated with a couple of times. And I think this is, I don't know what to do with poetry sometimes. I was a literature major, but I've never been a huge poetry reader for reasons mostly related to it's not really the way that my brain works. My brain doesn't work in like precise details. It works in stories and narratives. And so I've never been the kind of person who can like rattle off quotes or,
Same. I can't rattle off quotes.
I just can't memorize exact things. I can tell you the sentiment that was expressed, but I have a hard time remembering sort of precise things. And I feel like with poetry, it's about the very specific words that are chosen and the specific phrasings. And, I'm just not someone that's ever going to remember that poet. And I also tend to read in chunks, right? So if I'm reading like a book, I read like the whole paragraph in one chunk, and I often don't sort of pull out specific details. It's just like what happened. But so I really like Betsy's stuff because it feels very Maine. Like I know all of these people and places and things that she's doing because it's all being done in a Maine farmhouse. And it's very family oriented. It's very accessible. It's very easy. And I think it's just the sort of book that I enjoy picking up and reading like 3 or 4 pages of. I almost never could tell you what that poem was about or any sort of specific details, but it's very comforting. And then this other one I got from Print, our friends in Portland, and it's by Phil Kaye, and I 100% bought it for the cover, which is this like astronaut covered in vine leaves, which I don't know is super cool.
It looks cool. Yeah, it looks cool.
Kind of wish I had a poster of it. I knew nothing about it, but it was signed and it had a cool cover, so I bought it. And these are really fun. He's very, maybe he's younger than us, but pop culture guy, a guy whose parents were immigrants, but it's really accessible stuff. It's a lot of like simple poems about his college girlfriend who broke up with him and, having young kids and, having his father be old and weird as an immigrant, and plays with a lot of form. There's a lot of like weird I don't know why the poems like go left justified to right justified to left justified to right justified. I don't know why,
I'm
but
sure there's a reason, but I couldn't tell you.
yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a conversation and sometimes it's two sides of one's brain or whatever. But, just like a very vibrant poet. So the book is called Date and Time by Kaye.
Cool.
Mostly I'm just encouraging people, it's a nice little $16 book of poetry, go dip in, see what you find. I'm pretty sure if it's a book of poetry and it's on a shelf in an actual bookstore, it's among the best.
Yeah, it's gotta be pretty good.
It's like, of the 50,000 poets who are out there's only like 10 that get a cool book every year, probably. And if someone actually decided to stock it, this is probably the cream of the crop. You'll probably not be disappointed. I've never been disappointed. I always enjoy them. So
that's awesome.
We rarely talk about poetry, and this was an opportunity. So I thought I would.
Cool. I have 2 books that I've been listening to. I finished one. I got to tell you, it was pretty forgettable. It was called The Other Half by Charlotte Vassell. And it was a mystery. And I guess it's called The Other Half, because it was about rich people and like
how the other half lives.
Yeah, a rich person got murdered. But I didn't really understand like why it had that title, just in terms of like what were they trying to say about the other half?
They deserve to die.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, and then at the end, like the last paragraph, they entered this like, racial issue that was not present anywhere else in the book. And so I guess I was supposed to like have rethought the entire book after that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like you learned one of the characters was black and you didn't know or something?
Yeah, basically.
What?
Yeah. Except I was listening to it. So it kind of passed me by. I had to rewind because I was like, what did I just miss here? Like it was so...
Wow.
Like then the book ends and I was like, I think something just happened. So I had to rewind and listen to it. And then I was just annoyed because I was like, well, you can't do that. No fair.
Like just because I can't
you just
see
put me
them
through this whole thing. Yeah.
That's super, like that is not cool. Like, oh, but what if I told you that this character I've used 300 pages on was this way? It's like, well, you could have told me that. That was
you could have told
narrative
me.
person.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that's even worse than the what's my mysterious trauma that you won't find out about until the last chapter.
It is. Because I mean, that one was like, at least they like are hitting you over the head with it throughout, being like, I'm going to tell you eventually.
Right.
Coming. Here it comes. Oh, wait. Hang on.
Hold on a sec.
Yes, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend that one, but I am now almost done with a book called The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon. I don't know how to say her last name. Which is set in Maine.
Oh, hello. I think there's only 2 types of books nowadays. There's World War II novels and books set in Maine. That's it.
I think it's just set in Maine or not set in Maine.
Wait, is it a World War II novel set in Maine?
No, it is historical fiction, but we are going much further into the past. It is 1790 or thereabouts.
Whoa.
So it's actually,
Maine was Maine.
It's not even Maine.
It's a book about Massachusetts.
It's a book about Massachusetts. Yes.
Wow.
You are just a colony of Massachusetts. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no.
Until
the Great Revolution of 1820, then Maine becomes its own spot. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's set in Hallowell, Maine, on the banks of the Kennebec River.
Yeah. Hallowell, the gay enclave of Maine.
Okay, I'm not at that. Not in 1790, as far as I can tell.
Really?
Though the main character is, she's great, like outspoken, confident, intelligent, wonderful female main narrator who is a midwife in this town, and she has like 9 kids. I think only 6 living. Sorry, so she has 6 kids, and one of them. 2 of them are unmarried. 2 of the older sons are kind of in their 20s and, could definitely be married by now and are not.
Mm.
And so I kept waiting for like one of them to be gay, but so far I've been disappointed.
Oh.
One
It would
of
be
them
hilarious if they were, because Hallowell is known for being, so it's right next to Augusta, which is the state capital of Maine. For people who don't know, the capital of Maine is only 15,000 people. It's very small, and many of our like legislators or people who actually more like the staffer type people live in Hallowell because it's like the cool suburb of Augusta, and it is known for being like 50% gay or something.
I did not know any of this.
And it's actually great musician town. Gay towns and music towns are often the same, one and the same. But like way punches above its weight in terms of live music and has bars. It's actually a great little city. I love Hallowell. Okay.
Well, in this story, which is all based on, real characters and real things that happened, the midwife is part of she gets kind of pulled into this murder trial. As well as a trial. There's a guy on trial for rape.
Ooh.
Which I found really interesting because like 1790 and this woman was like horrifically raped, which is maybe why it's the only reason it's actually like made it to trial because it's just so bad. But the midwife is always on the good side, the good guy's side, and has many of the townspeople against her. But it's very engrossing.
This is an audiobook again, you said?
This is an audiobook, and it was tough in the beginning because, it's such deep history that it's like mistress this and,
Right.
And some of the, when you read it, when you're hearing it aloud, some of the dialogue just sounds a little stilted to today's ears, but you get into it.
Yeah. The frozen river. And the
frozen river.
The Kennebec.
Yes, correct.
That's very interesting.
Snowier times.
Is the author a Mainer?
I don't think so. There was something recently where I was like, I don't think you have been to Maine.
What? She just researched this book about Hallowell, Maine, and she's like from what, California or something? What?
She lives in Nashville, Tennessee.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder if she's friends with Lydia Peely and was coming and hanging out on the island with her and decided she'd rip off a Hallowell story.
No, I think she discovered the story of this woman, the main character, because it's a real, her diary, her day book was, I think, left behind, has been, preserved all these years.
I'm going to have to look into this. That sounds very interesting. Very interesting. All right. I don't have any other books. Do you have other books?
I don't. I just have all those future books that we're going to talk about next year.
Let's not talk about that quite yet. Well, I would say that's good. And I hope people can hear all of the hustle and bustle.
It is very hustly bustly out there. So I should
you're a little bit distracted, I would say.
Yes. If you notice Sam going on for longer than he should have, it was because I was distracted.
But that's okay. That's okay. Everybody gets a pass in the middle of December. We do want to let everybody know that should you need books for any of your friends and family, we have a website and we offer gift wrapping, so you can actually order books from us and we will send them to your loved ones. If you do it before, I don't know.
Soon. I mean, by the time this comes out, like today.
Probably,
do it today.
Yeah, this will be out on the 14th or the 15th. I would not try to do it much later than that. So actually, what are you doing? Open up a browser right now. Go to bookshopbeverlyfarms.com. Buy some books.
Order it up.
Order it up right now.
You can search by what's in store, right? When you're ordering?
You can. Yeah, you just click a little thing that says
and then we'd be able to ship it out right away.
100%. Yeah. So if it says in store, we'll get it like right away. Put it in a box, kapow, it winds up
on your doorstep or your whoever's.
Yeah, you should do that. Or a gift card is also always a great gift.
Cards are great.
They can redeem their gift cards on our website, which is amazing. Yes. All right. So do you have any other reminders that you would like to offer up to our listeners?
I do.
Okay. Well, then, we're going to see you after Christmas. So we will not have another pod before Christmas. It is, I think, day 4 of Hanukkah right now as we're recording this. If you're a Hanukkah person, happy Hanukkah. If you're a Christmas person, have a great Christmas. If you're a Kwanzaa person, Hannah's telling me to wrap it up.
Bye, everybody. Gotta go.
Bye.